What if I told you one man forced Vince McMahon to become the Vince McMahon that we remember? What if WCW never exists? No Monday Nitro, no Goldberg streak, no Hill Hogan, no Attitude Era arms race, and maybe no wrestling boom of the late 90s at all. This isn't just the story of WCW. This is a story of the man that forced wrestling to evolve.
Booking sheets and double turns, politics and slow burns, booking blunders, legends made, cities cheered and empires fade, tape trade tales, late night shows, broken noses, borrowed robes, line them up, we call the spot, give you all the weird they forgot. Cheap pop history. Let the crowd go wild on the memory. Every bell, every brawl, every mystery. Step inside the ring with cheap pop history.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cheap Pop Society. Looking a little bit different. So not only does the podcast have a new look, but Grandma, you got something else going on over there. How we doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm happy to be back. You jumped on the grenade for me last week and took care of things, and what an amazing episode that was. um, yeah, I'm happy to be back and in living color with new chompers. I can't hide the obvious, but
Right.
yeah, it is what it is. I'm having a good time. I'm living life, and um, yeah, we're here. We're here. Rest in peace to the great Ted Turner. This whole episode is kind of dedicated to him, and
Yeah.
um, we'll get into it. But maybe I don't know. We should a moment of silence on a podcast. I don't know. Nah, it's
Uh,
okay. And I don't have a bell to do the 10 bell, but everybody else did it, so it's cool.
right. We're
Uh,
This was originally going to be last week, but of course we couldn't make it work for last week. But we're here, right? Things happen. Manure occurreth, right?
yeah,
Shit happens. So it's fine. We're here this week and we're making it a thing. And again, so I kind of mentioned in the beginning, we have a little bit different look. That is by design. We are now officially on the here we go. We're on the
yeah,
All Gloves Off Sports Media Network.
it's official.
So we are using a new program. So bear with me as we get used to doing that. And yeah. Today we're talking about Ted Turner, but before we do that, is there anything going on this week that caught your eye in the world of professional wrestling?
Very evil, very nice. Um, Danhausen's fucking growing on me, dude. Um, I guess I just like things that where you point, and then hit the payoff, like
You
L.A.
are
Night,
first.
cursed. Yeah. um, I you froze as you were cursed.
I got first.
Um, I the payoff wasn't what I wanted it to be, but I'm weirdly happy with how it ended up. Um, I was expecting Jelly Roll or Punk and to get Minihausen and then Minihausens. Like, okay, that was cool.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
gonna lie. When it first happened, I was like, "What are we doing?" And it still felt a little ridiculous, but the you know 2 or 3 minutes into it, I'm like, I mean, that's kind of the point. That's what they're doing, right? So I think I was taking the pro wrestling a little bit too serious in the beginning, where I'm like, "What are we doing?" But you look back in
well,
old school, that kind of thing happened. I mean, the
the
little mini
Minihausen was
housing.
running the match.
Yeah, I know.
He
It's
did he did like 85% of the match for his
yeah.
team.
So that just was what it was. I mean, it's you know like 0 stars, I guess. But entertainment wise, it was 5 stars. I think it grew on me as we went through, like you're saying.
Also, I forgot to say we're keeping Ebby's seat warm. She's not here this week. but as soon as he's ready to be back, we'll announce it and let you guys know and do it right. But hope things are going well, and we look forward to having you back.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
But so John Cena came back again,
Yep.
and it's almost like he didn't retire. Like he's always there now. Like I thought he was going to start
I think
announce the WWE club, and I was a little
yeah.
disappointed. But then he announced the like a title and like a tournament.
Yeah, so the John Cena Classic, and it's of course, the internet wrestling community is all over it because it is a little different. I mean, you have the concept, I don't know if you saw it, but the whole concept of the layout is, yes, it's a tournament, yes, it's for a title, but the fans vote who the champion is, and they
It's
can
so
vote
weird.
anybody, right? So, if me and you are in a match and I lose, I could still be voted the champion. And now with John Cena, the way he presented it, that's the 'cause, he's hustle, loyalty, respect, right? So, he said, if you hustle enough, you can earn the respect and still get voted. So, I get it on that aspect, but in the storytelling part and the whole idea of tournaments, you know what I mean? Like, to not have the person that win the match be who you can vote for, a little crazy to me. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know that I like that part, but I love the fact that it's a night dedicated to, the Raw, SmackDown athletes versus NXT, right? Present or past versus future. That it would be cool if we had some people come back, like, out of retirement to wrestle some people, some NXT guys, but, uh, I don't know. I like that concept of it. I think maybe it's, one of these things that evolves over time just to, change a little bit, but he didn't exactly seem confident when he was presenting it. I don't feel, uh, when it came to the voting aspect of it.
that just feels wonky. Like what was it, Cyber Tuesday or some shit where they
Taboo
decided
Tuesday and Cyber
Cyber
Sunday.
Tuesday
Yeah.
where the internet decided who was going to fight. Like
And from all reports I've ever seen, that was like a shoot thing. Like,
it
they
was. Yeah, I saw
legitimately
that too.
vote
Yeah.
yeah. And I was in a show, there were a couple different shows through when I, uh, wrestled, and it was a battle royal, and they got to choose the first 2 people, and I'm sitting there like, "There's no way I'm gonna the fans aren't gonna choose me." Course, sure enough, I was second, so you're going out with somebody you never even talked to. I mean, it was a friend of mine, so, we had fun with it, but, like, it's cool, it's different, it's a weird kind of pressure because not only are you in front of everybody, trying all eyes on you, now you're in front of everybody, all eyes on you, and you have no idea what you're doing. So, it's a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
filling out process, so, yeah, it's
Talk about
again
why.
right, and it's very old school, right? You go out there and you kind of walk through it, you don't talk about much, but anyway, not to harp on that. So that's the John Cena Classic. Um, I saw something that was interesting to me. Uh, it was I don't remember who now, but they approached Triple H about all the ads. Like he said, I just went up to him
Oh,
and said,
it
like,
was Ice Cube's son.
"That's right, that's right."
Yeah.
Uh, and Triple H like acknowledged the fact that yeah, we're just trying to work on the placement. Like it's getting, I feel like from the way it was presented, the way it read, I should say, it was like, yeah, we know. we're we're getting too many ads in here, so let's just figure it out, right? So at least they're aware of it, I guess. Maybe we'll see something change. I don't know. Another big thing from WWE this week. See what your thoughts are on this. We have the return of house shows. They did announce 10 dates. I think that was either just this morning or yesterday that they, announced it. I don't remember any of the dates off the top of my head, but it's a summer tour. So I think that's pretty cool. I would say that the tickets are probably gonna be much cheaper than it would be for a Raw, SmackDown, or PLE, uh,
You'd
but
hope.
yeah, but, don't we're not gonna sit here and, guarantee that because TKO, but, I think that I think it's a good thing because the especially with WWE being so young now, the main roster even itself is, the average age is dropping, especially over this last year. Having those events, they get to have fun. They get to try things they wouldn't try on TV or try on a PLE, and reps are a big thing. Like that, that's all Drew McIntyre was talking about. He used to wrestle however many times a week, and now he trains per match.
Yeah.
Like he's a UFC fighter or a boxer. Like that's crazy to only
Yeah.
wrestle like what 20 times a year, maybe if you wrestle on some Raws and SmackDowns.
I mean, yeah, but you gotta protect your investment. They're paying these guys a lot of money, and you
But
only
they're
have
not gonna
like
get
they
it.
say, you've said it before, you only have so many bumps on your bump card, so
Yeah, you do, but it's also a thing of you're never gonna get better when you're doing that. So there's something in the middle there somewhere. Like you get better and smoother at what you do the more you work. So they're gonna get up there and they're gonna, obviously the best at what they do because of where they're at, right? They're among the top 1% of wrestlers. But now you have everybody else that's outworking you. You have everybody in AEW that they're gonna work more than that. So I don't know. We'll see. I think maybe that's part of the reason why they're introducing some house shows. It's good for the workers to be able to have those times to try new things out, so it doesn't just become completely cookie cutter,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I like it. I get it.
Um, so I did have this note from last week, all those releases last week. I mean, it was not a surprise because we get that pretty much every year, but I mean, some of the names definitely surprised me. Uh, Kofi and Xavier, right? Who now obviously, I mean, I
I
think it was
think
a
they already
no-brainer.
signed.
Yeah, I think it was a no-brainer as soon as we saw that they were gonna go either AEW or TNA, and I think that the Young Bucks pretty much, gave it away, which is cool. They can't officially do anything until the 90 days are up, but, that we can only imagine that's where we're gonna see them is AEW, and
They're
now of
going
course
by Kofi and Austin Creed.
yeah, that's why he was in TNA before he went to WWE, so, that was kind of his indie name, so back to the beginning, back to the drawing board there with that. So and they'll be able to do like, all these different cons and everything. So they'll probably make more money than they did in WWE by the time the year's over with. Uh,
Yeah.
of course, Magic, the Motor City Machine Guns, they got released as well. The entire Wyatt Six, Apollo Crews, Aleister Black.
He signed
Uh,
too. Him and Zillion already signed
yeah,
with AEW.
yeah. uh, Kyrie Sane, like so many. It was crazy, but
Kyrie wanted to go back to Japan though.
yeah, I think that was a little bit of a mutual thing from what I
Yeah.
saw, and I don't
I
know
think the
what's
door's
going on with
open if she wants
Oscar
to come
right
back.
now. I don't know if
She's
Oscar.
semi she's semi-retired.
So
But
there's
again,
so much.
she had something going on at home. I
Yeah,
through dirt sheets. She had something
yeah.
going on at home where she wanted to she needed to go back and attend to whatever business she had. Excuse me.
So yeah, I mean, not to take up too much time there, but the the world of wrestling in WWE is evolving and changing. I'd say pretty rapidly over this last year and a half with different retirements and you're firing people that are on TV one week and, like Aleister Black up to the build to WrestleMania beat Randy Orton on SmackDown. Kyrie Zane was pretty much in a angle, like, so that's surprising, but again, I
Well,
think
it's because
for her it was
TKO doesn't have the finger on the pulse, and they're just meddling. Like Kevin Nash just said the other day, like get the fuck out of Triple H's way. Like
yeah.
let him do what he's doing. And it's you're asking these guys to take up to 50% pay cuts. It's like who's gonna say yes to that? Just do the same job you were doing
And
with a
some people
50%
did,
pay cut?
And I don't know, but to be, like, in the middle of your contract and then somebody coming up, "Hey, we're gonna restructure your contract," which is the politically correct way to say, "Hey, you're gonna make a lot less money." So, I don't know how I would react either, but, uh, on the heels of that, then they announced the fact that it's record profit for the part of 2026, and then you have, Nick Khan
Yeah,
signed through 2030, Triple H he signed an extension. It looks a little weird when you're out here saying that you have a record profit and then you're cutting contracts and letting people go that, are part of the reason that you have the profits, but, I get it.
it's
Not
pretty shitty.
everybody can
Just say
be.
it. It's pretty shitty.
It is, but also, I mean, the life will go on. They'll continue to make their money, right? It's just business at the end of the day, like, we're gonna let these people go that may or may not be pulling their weight in their contracts, to put it
Yeah.
bluntly. And that somebody had to make that decision. Somebody had to say that these guys need to go, and they did. So, anyway, again, probably talked too much time about all that, but back to what our episode is actually about. Um,
WCW.
WCW. We gotta Before we get into too much here, we gotta really talk about who Ted Turner was because coming off the heels of his passing, I feel like there's a lot of people, especially because it's been so long since he's kind of been relevant in the wrestling world. There's basically a whole generation that has no idea who Ted Turner was and why he's even a name that's relevant to the world of professional wrestling, which isn't mind blowing to me because it's been so long, but also at the same time, it's like, how don't you know this? You know, but outside of wrestling, he was the guy that founded CNN, right? He is the reason he created the Superstation, right? The, uh, news and TV
Yes.
station that's on all the time, right? Yeah, TBS, uh, with a national channel.
He
He
owned the
owns
Braves.
Yeah, he owns the Braves, he owns the Hawks, or owned, I should say. I'm not sure what year that all that kinda got turned over to somebody else, but his obsession is really just taking bold risks, right? If the mentality of just the competitive side of him, led to all of that, and that's crazy for any just to be able to say that one man did all those different things, like, you're a special kind of person to even be able to be in the conversation of 1 or 2 of those things, but let alone putting all that on your resume.
Yeah, that's wild. And I think his legacy will live on, but it's through the guys like our age. Because kids that are younger than us don't know what it was like to get home from school and then at 4 o'clock my time, turn on TBS and watch a Braves game. And what the hell is this? Oh, live baseball. And it's not the Dodgers. Like, this is cool.
Right.
And then, a lot of the coverage, the media coverage we have now, we have to thank to Ted Turner because
Yep.
of CNN. And,
And I think
it's
he go ahead, sorry.
good. He was just a visionary, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did take a lot of chances. And unfortunately, I mean, he wanted to beat Vince McMahon. And that was basically taking a gun to a knife fight. And he, for 83 weeks, he beat him, which is an accomplishment in its own right. But, you know, unfortunately, it's hard to beat the man.
Yeah. And, Ted really understood television better than anybody because he was a pioneer, right? He understood the power of what television could be, and not only that, he grew very keen to wrestling, right? With Georgia Championship Wrestling, it was originally on TBS. That was something that really got eyes on his network, right? It wasn't gangbuster numbers, but it was a significant piece of the puzzle for him when he's putting together these Superstation, right? So, I think that's kinda where he come to really love wrestling, right? It's, again, Georgia Championship Wrestling, which would eventually later pretty much be the origins of WCW. But something I think you got to look at, and I've heard this talked about a little bit before, like that's within this last week already. You got to look at Ted Turner. He wasn't a wrestling promoter, right? In the sense of the any sense of the word, really, other than that he owned the business, but he wasn't that first, I should say. He wasn't a professional wrestling promoter first. He was a television guy, a visionary, right? It had his had in a whole bunch of different things that we just talked about. And that matters because as competitive as Ted Turner is, as competitive as Vince McMahon is, that's where the biggest difference was. Vince McMahon was a promoter. Vince McMahon's entire life was the WWF, the WWE, right? Ted, WCW was just another thing that he did. So he was thinking
Another
as
notch in his belt.
right. He was thinking as the broadcaster. Vince McMahon was, this is my everything, and this is my one. If I'm a one trick pony, it's because of it's going to be because of this, right? Because all my everything goes into the WWF, and the competitiveness between the two, and probably where like Vince McMahon would be very irritated by Ted Turner is because of, I would say, because of that. Like, you're sitting here doing all these things, being successful, and I'm, in this one, but I'm not going to be beat. But now you're ahead of me in the ratings. Like, I don't know that
It must
there was ever, I don't know how personal the animosity was between the two or anything, but I think that's as as a kid that grew up, I was always thinking Eric Bischoff versus Ted Turner, or I mean, not Ted Turner, Eric Bischoff versus Vince McMahon. But in reality, like if you look at TV, like go back and watch stuff, Vince McMahon was his aim was at Ted Turner, right? He never really ever went after Eric Bischoff at all. So, you know, perspective, I
hired
guess.
and fired him like 12 times.
Yeah. So, that's what kind of changed everything was Vince seeing, he's the promoter, Ted being the broadcaster. But before we get on to anything else, really, we're gonna take a time out for
For the wrestling word of the week.
the professional wrestling word of the week. Who came up with that idea? But so grandma's idea again come to fruition. Word of the week. This week is gonna be, because it kind of ties in with everything. We're talking about leverage, right? So you're using one asset to grow another. Biggest example of exactly what we're talking about this week is Ted Turner using wrestling to grow his cable television, right? But also used cable television to grow wrestling. So it's a leverage that it kind of works both ways. Pretty simple idea. Not not a wrestling term as far as like in the ring, behind the scenes kind of deal, but again, it kind of went in with what we were doing here. So again, that is leverage. Let's move. You have anything to add to anything we've talked about so far? Sorry, I feel like
Leverage,
I'm
no, leverage is a good one. Yeah, I, I don't have much to add to that. That's a really, really good one. I like that.
we're getting into where hopefully I won't feel like I'm strongholding the whole thing here. But next we go into buying Jim Crockett Promotions. So right, we've got Ted Turner starting his stations. He had Georgia Championship Wrestling on it. Now we move into the Jim Crockett Promotions era. So we're looking at 1988. Jim Crockett Promotions is collapsing.
Oh, oh yeah, baby. It's a good joy. It's a good idea. Like, yeah, you just buy this and then let us run with it, baby. Yeah.
Right, right. So Jim Crockett Promotions floundering, and in comes Ted Turner, and he buys it, right? And then Jim Crockett Promotions, before you know it, becomes World Championship Wrestling, right? So WCW is born, and he really doesn't look back. Ted Turner, 100%. That was, as much as he was not a wrestling promoter and not 120% focused on WCW, it was still his baby.
I loved the story that Bischoff tells when he's like, "Eric, tell me what you need." And he's like, "Well,
Yeah,
I need live TV." And then I don't know, were you gonna get into this?
probably here in a minute, but go ahead.
So he tells, I think Siegel, what do we got going on Mondays?" And he's like, "Oh, we run Turner movies or whatever." And he's like, "Carve out 2 hours for Eric and give it to WCW." And I just thought, like, what a giant, like, fuck it. Let's just
Right,
throw Jello at the wall and see what sticks. Like, that was cool, man.
right, and that's another flex, like, Vince McMahon didn't have that. He's no,
No.
he's on his knees trying to find any time he can get on whatever day it could be, right? Just so happened to be on Mondays at 9 or 8 or whatever it was, so when you have the power of you literally own the television station, you can look at somebody across the table and say, "This is when it's on. I don't really fucking care. This is when this is when it's gonna be on, and it's gonna be live." And, that's it. Uh, Crack the whip, right? So, yeah, that's a big difference I never even, really looked at till you were saying that, like, it kinda popped into my mind, but, um, again, his whole idea was, "Let's keep wrestling on TBS," because, like we said, it helps kinda create that, and he really wanted to have a national alternative to the WWF. At one time, he did try to purchase the WWF. So,
Yeah,
that's his he's just a wrestling guy, right? Um, and to
wrath.
be
Oh,
able
yeah, Vince, I think him and Vince had, like, 3 conversations, and he goes, one of them was like, "Well, Vince, let me buy your wrestling company." He's like,
yeah,
well, Ted, unfortunately, I'm not in the wrestling business. I'm in the professional wrestling, uh,
the sports entertainment business.
sports entertainment business."
Yeah,
And that's when Vince knew they were in 2 different ballparks. Like, it was
right.
just different.
And that's part of what so yeah, exactly. You know,
Did I
most
jump on
wrestling
your toes?
companies
I'm sorry.
most wrestling companies die because they lack television, right? If you don't have TV, you're especially back in the day, like the '90s, you're done. WCW had guaranteed national TV, like we said, because Ted Turner owned the network, which was kind of a revolutionary thing that hasn't happened since, right? Tony Khan, they're on TBS and Turner networks, but they don't own the network, right? Uh, I guess WWE for a little bit had the WWE Network. I guess that kinda could be the thing, but it wasn't not a national, like, everybody has it available to them right away without paying for it. Uh, but that was when, once WCW got on the books and on the network, that's when Vince McMahon realized that he really had a competitor. And, I think he started shifting a little bit and squirming a little bit uneasy in his seat because he knew that it was a real opportunity here for them to real competition because the pockets go deep, and we're gonna talk about here in a second some of the stuff that those deep pockets can do. But yeah, again, the I love that you told the story that, Ted calling Vince McMahon and say, "I'm in the wrestling business." And Vince McMahon saying, "Well, that's good, but I'm in the sports entertainment business." So,
Yeah, there you go. That's the
again
conversation.
again, 2 very different mindsets.
Mentalities, yeah.
Yeah, and you can even still see that today, like, WWE is completely still sports entertainment driven, and now you have AEW
You
that pro
are
right.
cursed.
Now you have A and AEW is very just professional wrestling centered, right? So, 2 different mentalities even today, but fans still reference that phone call as, one of the most symbolic moments that you can mark the beginning of the Monday Night Wars, right? Once that phone call happened, it was almost like, "Oh, it's on," right? "You wanna talk shit to me like that? Let's go." So, once that happened, when he bought WCW, that's when the money, right, the ability of what money can do started to come out. Those
Yeah.
deep pockets I was talking about. One of the first things they did was who'd they sign? Hulk Hogan, right? Hogan, who left WWF, telling Vince McMahon he was never going to go with anybody else. Like, I'm just going to go make movies and whatever. Hogan got bored. If I don't know if you've watched the WC or the Hulk Hogan
Seen
documentary yet, but he kind of got bored.
Blunder in Paradise.
Right, right. And so Hogan signed. He came in to do his thing. Not long after that, Randy Savage came in. This
Oh,
is
yeah, dig it.
in 1993. Eric Bischoff started to take power, which that's not so much the deep pockets, but that's starting the revolution
Oh,
of WCW beginning to gain momentum and make their
when
first
was
dollar.
Lex Luger, brought in?
That was the first Monday Nitro, which was September 4th, 1995, in the Mall of America. So again,
That was
gut
that was a
punch
big one.
right off the bat. We're live every Monday, WCW Nitro, and oh, here's your top guy that was on your show a couple weeks ago, walking down the aisle in the Mall of America because he's now WCW, right? So yeah, that going head to head with Raw, launching Monday Nitro on TNT, which is their flagship station.
Speaking of okay, so we're talking about Kofi and, Austin Creed needing 90-day, uh, like, they have to wait out 90 days.
Uh,
Do you remember Rick Rude showing up on one Monday Night Raw
yeah,
in DX and
well, it's still
shaving his mustache, and then showing up with WCW the same day,
and still the only time that was ever done, right?
and
I
there's
mean,
good
obviously
reason
still,
for
but
it.
yeah, so it was somebody somewhere in the WWF let the contract slip, and he wasn't having any of it. So yeah, he had a mustache on one show, and it was taped, right? And he
Yeah.
showed up the following Monday on a live show at WCW, looking a little bit different, but it was definitely still him. So yeah, an iconic story as well. If people don't know about that, look that up on YouTube. It's kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, the fact that Nitro even got to exist at all was crazy, and it's all credited, of course, to Ted Turner, who, like you said, he's a billionaire that gave wrestling a primetime television spot, a massive budget, and the ability to be live every single week,
I mean,
and
if it
that
wasn't for Ted,
immediately,
we would never have, like, the NWO,
right?
Sting.
Exactly,
Um,
and
I mean, I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but those are 2
oh,
major ones.
we'll go through a
Goldberg,
lot of it here. I know you were the WWF kid.
yeah,
We're talking my side of things here, so
that's right. Here, let me shut up. Let me
oh, no, you're
let
good.
me let me have
But
you let me give you the floor.
up to that point, nobody had ever really been a challenge to the WWF, right? But now you have this seemingly bottomless pit of money and talent that's coming at WWF, and it's a cutthroat thing. That's when, of course, we go into the 83 weeks. That's WCW beating WWF for 83 straight weeks in the ratings. Unheard of, and again brought on because of Ted Turner initiating it. And then later, I think it's got to be credited to Eric Bischoff and Hogan and the signing of all those guys because Bischoff had the check the backing to be able to do it. But the creation of, like you said, the NWO, right? If it wasn't for Ted Turner giving all the money, the faith to uh, Eric Bischoff, there would be no NWO, and I don't think WCW would have ever reached close to the heights that it reached, had the NWO not been a thing. So again, we're talking major contributions from Ted Turner here. Primetime wrestling, national competition to the WWF. You had financial guarantees for wrestlers. That was another thing that WCW kind of started, and that came under at least Ted Turner. I don't know how much of a say he had in that, but um, guaranteed contracts became part of wrestling because WCW had the Turner money, right? And they were able to say, "You're getting this no matter what." WWF was always like, "Hey, I can give you this opportunity. It's not going to be for a big downside on your contract, but you have the ability to to make 5, 10, 15, 20 times this but I'm not gonna give you any real guaranteed money, right? So that's really what attracted Scott Hall and Kevin Nash even to go over to WCW, right? Because they were top dogs in WWF, right? Diesel and Razor. So it's an interesting twist there when you start talking money, and of course Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were all about not just all about the money, but for Kevin Nash it was all about his family, right? You got to do what's
Yeah,
best there. But and the other thing, just like in life where Ted Turner was a risk taker and that was what he did, led to a lot of creative risk taking. Because without Turner, we don't have, and you've already mentioned a couple of these, we don't have a heel Hulk Hogan. We don't have the NWO, which is kind of what brought on the Attitude Era, right? Had that not happened in WCW, there might not have been a shift in the way Vince McMahon did things in WWF where it became more reality based, right? Less cartoonish. So that's kind of where the Attitude Era came in. So did Ted Turner accidentally create the greatest era in professional wrestling history?
absolutely.
The mentality that he had behind him.
Well, they
At
were never gonna push the limits unless they had to push the limits, you know?
right, right, exactly, and
That
that is what the
if
Monday
it
Night
wasn't
Wars.
for the if it exactly, if it wasn't for the NWO, DX never reads that letter that USA sends them on air, and we never get, what was it? I didn't have sex with that young girl, or I didn't sleep with that young girl. We were up
Oh,
all
oh,
night.
yeah, right, and, DX, I don't think it was necessarily I don't know that it had been Vince McMahon's first move, but I think it was a desperation thing, like, just let him go out, and he realized all of a sudden that that was ratings, and let's go. But I'm gonna go down through a list of some things here that the Monday Night Wars brought on. I know we've talked about the Monday Night Wars before, but this was just kind of a quick list, and we could talk a little bit about each one, but, we've kinda already hit on this. It's very much obviously, it's Nitro versus Raw. Raw at the time was live every other week, right? Taped every other week, obviously, and then Nitro was live every week from the get-go. The amount of time changed as far as how many hours we had. Nitro started off like 1 hour, then 2, and then I think eventually became 3. Raw was 1, I think, and then got to 2 for the longest time through the whole, Monday Night Wars, so and then Nitro stayed on to 11:05, right? And
Strategically.
right, and then yeah, so they just did some crazy stuff. They made sure the television commercials were lined up so that it didn't coincide with certain things, so and they were
That's
able
why I
to
never got to see it because I was a WWE guy, and every time I switched over, they were on commercial also, and, like, I didn't wanna miss anything in WWE, so I would record WCW, but then I would watch it, like, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and it just lost all the flavor because I didn't get it live.
yeah. So, again, and speaking of live, that's chaos. No matter what happened, it had to be what you had to go with it, right? So, that's the good thing about live television is there is no screw ups. 'Cause if you screw up, it's live. What are you gonna do? Fuck it, we'll do it live. Yeah.
We're
Um,
doing live.
One of the biggest things the Monday Night Wars is known for is talent jumping. We could probably sit here and just with me and you without looking up anything, name people that jump ship, right? We already talked about Lex Luger. Hall and Nash were kind of one of the originals that kind of
Hart.
jump shipped. Bret Hart came over, and it's very reminiscent to, like, WWE and AEW right now, right? When you have 2 big dogs, you have people that are gonna choose which one they think is best for them and their families in that moment, and you can't fault them for choosing whichever one they choose, right? But you had not just
Excellent.
upper right, you had not just upper card people, but mid card people and even bottom, low card, uh, and a lot of times what would happen is they would come from WWF and they would be, like, considered a top guy in WCW, but you also had, like, Chris Jericho, who was mid-card at best in WCW, go over and, you know, first thing that happened to him was he's in a feud with The Rock. You had the Radicals who were mid-card for sure, other than Chris Benoit won the won the WCW title, like, the night before he went and left for the WWF, but, you know, they came into the WWE and it was kind of on the same level, but again, they're getting pushed or grouped
I
or
mean, but to quote Kevin Nash again, do you wanna play for the Yankees or do you wanna play for the Tampa Bay Rays? Like,
right,
you wanna be a Yankee, like, people know who you are. Yeah, it's creative in WCW, but, like, he was just there and nobody knew who the fuck Vinny Vegas was.
right, at the time, but when
Yeah.
he first went to the WWF, but, you know, then when he came back, WCW became the Yankees.
You know, that shows you how degenerate of a fan I was of wrestling. That Saturday afternoons, I used to watch their show Saturday whatever their Saturday
Saturday
night
night.
show
Yeah.
whatever it was, and I remember a wrestler named Terrorizing, and I thought, "Oh, this guy's weird," because he had really, really thick white
Blonde
blonde
hair,
hair,
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, I kinda like this guy," and then I remember Vinny Vegas and seeing him do the and then come to find out,
The
he
Diamond
was
Stud?
caught yeah, did I miss also Scott Hall? But Vinny Vegas was a shoot from a Steve Martin, My Blue Heaven, which is a movie that my uncle used to watch all the time, and when I heard that, I was like, "Holy shit, that's exactly what he's doing, he's cosplaying them." So, WCW, you had to be in the yeah, I mean, you and I were the right age, like,
Yeah.
we were between 7 and 11 years old when it was hot, so we get it, but there's people that are listening to this who are probably in their early 20s who have no idea what the fuck we're talking about.
Right, well, they grew up with one promotion, and, you know, I think that's sad. It's almost a sin to only have one promotion that you grow up with, and not that there wasn't good times, you know, I feel like the Ruthless Aggression era, you know, right after the WCW went on out of business, I think that was a good era in WWF WWE, but followed by one of the worst periods in wrestling, and, that's just is what it is, you know, it's you got a monopoly and you got recycled storylines, some that worked, some that didn't, but, um, anyway, uh, but in the Monday Night Wars, another big thing that happened was that's when wrestling really began to be a part of mainstream culture, right? You had that in the golden era in the '80s, then it kinda dipped off for a while, and then when the Monday Night Wars started back up, '96, '97, '98, '99, wrestling was mainstream culture.
We
Again,
had, like, Cyndi Lauper involved with Lou Albano, and she was in her music video, and she showed
right,
up at
or '80s.
WrestleMania.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
Mr.
then
T headlining.
right? And then you have WWF, who was all about the kids, and, you know, if you get the kids to come, the parents are gonna bring them, right? If you're focused on the kids, then now all of a sudden you got a family that's there. WCW switched that up and said, "We're gonna you know, we gotta do things different because we're not gonna be better at the WWF at doing what they do best, which is targeting that audience. So let's target 18 to 49." Well, they did that, and that's where things became more real. College kids were in the crowd going crazy and, you know, it just that's where it became more of a pop culture movement and phenomenon into mainstream culture, and of course, WWE had to follow because if not, they were gonna be out of this, right? So that's where that shift really happened was because of the Monday Night Wars, and they haven't really went away from that. A little bit with WWE when, you know, Linda McMahon first started into her political career, and they lowered the rating a little bit, and it was they're a lot more kid friendly, that kind of thing. And, you know, now we're getting back to a little bit more
This
edu
day.
yeah, but there'll never be anything like the Attitude Era, but that was just what needed to happen. They had to fit in society, and they found
See,
their
well,
niche.
that's why to that point, that's why I watch AEW now when I do, But even they take it too far, and it's like, "This is disgusting." Like, I don't wanna
Yeah.
if I see
Yeah,
that
sometimes
fucking
you're like,
bamboo
"Ugh."
shit in the yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it at Revolution at Staples Center. If I see another one of those dudes hammering in the stakes to the head where it looks like, I'm done. I'm done with wrestling. If I ever watch that if I have to see that again, I'm done with it.
That's something I never did, and I don't know that I ever would. But there's gotta be, like I'd wanna do it one time just to see what it felt like, because
What's the payoff though?
there's no way that it hurts as bad as it looks. That's the whole idea behind what you do in wrestling, it's the illusion of like thumbtacks. They suck, but, like, the first time I got slammed into them, I thought it was gonna be so much worse than what it was. And I hit, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." It's just a warm sensation, right?
I got slammed
Yeah.
with them too. It doesn't hurt as bad as you think it is. Like
Exactly,
it's
and
like you said, it sucks, but it's no like you just, there's so many of them. It's just like whatever. Like
but I don't know how you get a giant toothpick shoved in your cranium and it doesn't hurt. So, that's something that's like, how the fuck do you do that? So, I don't know. I wanna figure out that part of it, the working part of it. Is there a working part, or is it all shoot, sucky bamboo stuck in the my head?
that match between Hangman Page and MJF still lingers in my head. Like so many spots that were just disgusting. And then the
But
greatest
what a
part
hell
was
of a match.
MJF sweeping up the glass in the ring.
Yeah, I was losing it on that, but
That
yeah,
popped me.
so, again, wrestling was in the mainstream, and I feel like we went over, most of these examples that I have listed, with, Lex Luger showing up on Nitro, the Hall of Fame, good lord, Hall and Nash with their invasion, Hogan joining the NWO, DX was kind of a reaction, I think, an
Yeah.
answer to what was laid down with the NWO as far as
Speaking of that, though, WCW missed a great opportunity. They should have let DX in the building. What show are you gonna watch?
oh, 100%, and I that would have probably ended up being on both shows, but it's one of those things where it'd have been amazing, but, like, what legal and I guess there couldn't really be legal consequences if they both did it, I don't know,
And
that
what's
that
the
would be
payoff? Like,
right,
what's
what do
the
you
you
do?
just have a you just smudge? Like,
You just start
are you throwing
you
working
start something
punches?
that you never would finish, right? There'd never be
Yeah.
a part 2, there'd never be a follow-up, but there would still be, like we still talk about them today almost doing it, if they really would've done it. If they just went in and had a stare off, right? It'd probably been even more of an epic thing, but I think, like you said, to your point, why? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
What it if you have either company's people, get hit
I don't know
or
how you pay.
whatever, then you're yeah,
I mean,
um,
you could make a case for each individual match, but then when you get to the main event, WCW is not gonna let Shawn Michaels get over, and WWE is
right,
not gonna let Hogan or whoever get over, so or
right.
Sting or whoever. So,
And, I
like
don't know that they ever were going for a match or, like, a whole show of it, I think it
yeah,
was just like, "Let's go inside," and, DX was calling
fuck shit up.
WCW's bluff, and if WCW was like, "Alright, come on in," then what do you do? But, yeah,
Well,
that's an ultimate what if, and we could probably do a whole episode, like, analyzing, like, what could have happened,
we
what
should,
why, but,
but Triple H even said, like, "We had no plan if they opened the door, like, we were screwed.
right.
We would've" like, he's like, "That's why we had our tents taped is just in case they let us in, because
Oh, yeah, you had no
you
idea,
let us
especially
in,
in the
like, what do
beginning,
you got it. You're gonna have to throw hands, like, what else are you
right?
gonna do?"
People have to understand, like, it was a real dog eat dog world back then, right? It was yeah, they were friends. WWE people had friends in WCW and vice versa, but, when it came down to it, they had to protect where they've invested their time and energy, which is the company that they're working for, right?
Yeah,
Um, and then the ultimate thing kinda happened that brought WWF back. DX helped, but the main thing was, of course, Austin versus McMahon.
yeah.
And that was exactly what WWF needed to
Well,
kind of finish that
and
adaptation
Mike
into
and Mike Tyson also.
Yeah, Mike Tyson coming in
'Cause
for
I
the
think Tyson was actually was not signed yet, but was in negotiations with WCW to do something with NWO, and Vince got word of it
mm,
and offered him just a, buttload more money to come do a angle with Stone Cold and DX.
yeah. So I think the main thing you can say there is everything that we just went through was competition, right? Competition created greatness because you had Vince and you had ultimately had Ted Turner who just would not back down to each other and refuse to lose to each other. But um, without Ted Turner being the ultimate funder of WCW, WWF likely they dominate uncontested, but that domination looks way different. I don't think you have a WWF that has like an Austin versus McMahon thing or DX. You know, you have a continuation of the wacky storylines and gimmicks and characters because WCW wouldn't have been there to change it, right? The urgency to be creative and push the boundaries just isn't there because there's no competition. And then where would we be in wrestling right now? Like, you know, it's evolved so much since the 90s. Like, I think we have a slower evolution of wrestling. I think, you know, I don't know where we would be had WCW not existed. Yeah, I think even
I
modern
mean, thank
fans,
God for Ted Turner.
right? Because modern fans that even if you always preferred WWE, WWF, everybody benefited from WCW existing. And the point that we're saying is that would not have happened without Ted Turner. Um, he's the one billionaire that truly challenged Vince McMahon and obviously changed wrestling kind of forever. But now we kind of start moving along a little bit, and we have the fall of WCW. One of the worst deals in history, the AOL Time Warner merger. And this is when you have basically Ted Turner's company almost taking over and really kind of kicking him out, right? And it wasn't necessarily a bad deal for him because, you know, he made a lot of money from it, but you have executives that didn't want a wrestling company trying to push WCW out the door. If you've ever listened to Eric Bischoff talk, you have money that's getting taken from their budget. You have money that gets dumped in as a loss onto them from other places within the company that makes it look like it's WCW. A lot of shady shit happening, and then the AOL Time Warner merger was kind of the last straw of what they needed to finally get rid of WCW. Um, creative from
Name on the
WCW.
contract says McMahon, but Shane McMahon.
And you have I don't think it's any secret, like, 2000 WCW creatively was a mess. When Vince Russo came
Well, you
over
give everybody creative control, what do you think's gonna happen?
and I don't even know that it was necessarily that. It's just Vince Russo claiming that he was the reason that WWF did what they did, and he wasn't. Um, I think Vince Russo was good for WWF, but I think Vince Russo needed like a Vince McMahon type to keep them keep his ideas kind of in check, if that makes sense, you know? And at the time that, you know, hot shot booking like he does was, I guess, a good thing because of the Attitude Era and it was with under Vince McMahon. But with him being the main guy, you know, I think it kinda just went a little wonky. Um, WCW was overspending, right, and not making the money back. Again, the chaos Vince Russo caused, um, and the worst thing for them and we say that they're losing, you know, even back then, they had more viewers than, like, AEW has right now. They had more I don't know, I don't wanna say pay-per-view buys, but, the ratings were definitely higher. Um, the worst thing that happened was Ted Turner losing influence within his company because he is the sole reason that it lasted as long as it did. Um, I don't know. You have anything to add to the downfall of WCW from the WWF fan perspective.
I mm, there's a lot of guys that I wish were gonna come over that didn't because they had time left on their contracts, and that sucks from a WWE perspective because we thought, "Oh, hell yeah, we're getting Sting, we're getting Goldberg, we're getting all these guys," and we ended up with, no disrespect, but Booker T and
Buff Bagwell
Buff Bagwell, like,
for a
it
couple,
wasn't it wasn't what we thought it was gonna be. It was cool, like,
and that's another episode too. Like, imagine the invasion if the I guess it was I guess it was Turner that had the contracts. I don't remember off the top of my head who it was, but
well, also, we
some
coulda
people
got
did,
NWO, we didn't get them until way later. I mean,
right, till everything was over. T But I see why Vince McMahon did it, why he just went along with it, because you couldn't it was a catch-22. Do we wait till everybody's available a year, 2 years down the road and then bring WCW in? Or do we strike while the iron's hot and we bring WCW in now even without their top dogs?
yeah.
That's a hard decision to
Well,
make.
I think he just wanted to buy the video archive or whatever. That was, like, the reason he inquired, and then he found out everything else was
Yeah.
available.
You know, and I think that was the biggest benefit to me as a fan of WCW, like, being able to sit down and watch old WCW has been, like, my favorite thing ever, and now that it's not on Peacock, I'm a little salty about that, but WCW vault on YouTube is starting to add stuff, so, you know, that's cool as well.
You know, maybe you can answer this for me. One of the things I hated about WCW is they had the over the top rope rule. What the hell was
Mhm.
that?
That is a classic, that's an old school rule, like, over the top ropes to disqualification, that was like an '80s, I mean, that was just a thing everywhere. That I guess WWE didn't really enforce it, but it's a very
Oh,
NWA,
because they
it was a
had the
very
Royal
NWA
Rumble.
thing. Right. It was a very NWA thing.
You think that was a slight to, the other wrestling organizations doing the Royal Rumble being the over the top rope?
Uh, I don't think, because, I mean, they still had battle royals, so
Mm.
it was just a part of, like, how if you have a hardcore match or a cage match or whatever, the rules don't exist, right? So, it was just when you have a straight one-on-one wrestling contest, if you throw somebody over the top rope, that's dangerous, it's out of line, it's a DQ. I remember watching, like, it was I think it was US title match with, Stunning Steve Austin and maybe, yeah, Flying Brian maybe, that, ended it with like that, and I've always hated that and thought it was stupid, but again, that was if that's a rule that they put in there, that was, again, an old school wrestling thing, which I'm glad isn't a thing anymore, but, yeah. So,
Yeah, there was a match in WWE, I think it was years ago when Cornette was around, but it was like the Midnight Express against, like, the Headbangers or something, and the Headbangers were gonna win the NWA titles, and yeah, it was the Headbangers, and Mosh threw somebody one of the Midnight Expressers over the top rope as his partner was getting the 1, 2, 3. He was, like, on 2 and 3 quarters about to slam down, and the NWA referee saw Mosh throw the guy out, and he didn't need to do it, and he did, and he fucking called the disqualification, and I was like, "What are we doing here?" And then they
yeah.
had to explain it.
Yeah, so, yeah, weird rules sometimes. But regardless of all that stuff, you know, Ted Turner was definitely WCW's protector. Once he kind of started losing control, WCW became vulnerable. The merger, I think it's widely considered the beginning of the end. No matter how much they tried to, you know, regain their grip on the ratings, you actually had Eric Bischoff that was coming in, and I'll never forget it. I shared it on Twitter or X or whatever you call it, a couple weeks ago. You know, the WCW Big Bang, that was supposed to be the relaunch of WCW. It was supposed to be a pay per view. It was just one that never happened. Regardless of all the attempts to do that, they just weren't wanted. And once they lost the TV deal that they were supposed to have, Eric Bischoff and his guys kind of drew out of their deal because they didn't want WCW without television. And Vince McMahon was able to get the library and everything else. So, to your point, I don't know how much he was looking to get. I don't know if he was looking for the contracts and all that, but he got it. Um, but at the end, WCW dying, that was, I don't think it was just a business failure, right? It wasn't just a wrestling company going out of business. It was the end of competition. It was the end of an era. You know, the Attitude Era was kind of forced to come to a close after that. Obviously, the Monday Night War era is over because there is no more WCW. It ended for a long time. It ended the unpredictability that came with the competition. And so very, very abruptly, we don't just have one less thing to watch, but we have something that changed wrestling, that changed it in the beginning when it started, and it changed it in the end when it was finally done. And I don't know that it was for the better after the fact, but uh, that was a thing that we kind of suffered with until TNA came along and they tried their thing. They were never real competition, and now you have AEW now. So I think you went from the only true competition was WCW, and then I think that you have to use the word alternative after that, right? TNA was an alternative to the WWF. I keep saying WWF because we're talking about it back then. To the WWE, AEW is an alternative to the WWE because right now you can't touch the WWE. But um, back to our main point here, you have Ted Turner. He gave wrestling legitimacy by putting it on cable TV. He was able to create true national competition. He helped produce the hottest wrestling era ever, changed the wrestler salary forever. He forced innovation from WWF, which ironically kind of backfired a little bit on him. That's a lot to be responsible for when wrestling's not your number one. Wrestling's not your only baby, right? Uh,
And you're not a promoter. Like, yeah, like,
and again, you could argue like Eric Bischoff did one of those things or whatever, but ultimately the boss was Ted Turner, and the boss is who gets responsibility, right? When things go wrong, it's the boss's fault, and when things go right, right, kind of the same thing. Um, but I think even WWE's greatest success in the '90s, again, only really happened because of WCW. Again, like we've said, they were forced to adapt. If we didn't have Ted Turner, we would have had no Nitro, no Wrestling War, no Attitude Era as we remember it, and that's just facts. That's just is what it is.
it's true.
So I
I
think
think
that we
Hulk I think Hulk and then Mean Gene Okerlund going over and then Bobby Heenan, like, it changed it made WCW a little bit more New York and a little it gave 'em a they were already legitimate. It just added more to the
It kinda opened the
overall.
floodgate. It opened the
Yeah.
floodgates as a huge it made them a real alternative for the workers too, right, for the wrestlers. You had Sting and you had Flair that were there, and I'm gonna be doing an episode on Sting, like, how he kind of survived every era. That's the next documentary that we have coming out, but, uh, you had those guys that were great wrestlers and top in, like, the NWA style of things, but when you bring in, like, again, the biggest thing they ever did was get Hulk Hogan to sign with them. I think that helped initiate everything, right? So, um, maybe without Hulk Hogan, you don't have a Attitude Era, right? You don't have the Monday Night Wars as you know it. You might have had a WCW that went on to, uh, primetime cable national TV and was a flop because they didn't have the star in professional wrestling, but we'll never know. Um, so Ted Turner didn't just fund a wrestling company, he forced an entire industry to fight for survival. And doing that, I think it can pretty much be said with concrete fact that he accidentally created wrestling's greatest era just by simply funding WCW.
It's true.
Uh, so again, rest in peace to a man that hopefully we did a little bit of justice here, kind of covering what he gave to the world of professional wrestling. That's what we all love. We could probably do 6 or 7 other episodes on all the other stuff that he did. But obviously tonight's focus was wrestling because that's what we focus on. That's our love, and uh, you know,
And that's why
thoughts
you
and
lovely people listen.
right, thoughts and prayers to Ted Turner's family and friends, and hopefully uh, you guys can find some kind of peace knowing that he leaves a legacy that's pretty much unlike anybody else ever.
He's a legit mogul.
Yeah. So that's all I got for this week. I don't know if you have anything else. Just everybody kind of stay tuned to see what we got coming up. I think you're going to see
Oh, there's so much more. So
we
much
haven't even
more.
s- we haven't even scratched the surface yet. But look out for some guests coming on and being a part of our podcast. Not every week, but coming on depending on the certain things that we do. Uh, Maybe next week we have a couple guests. We'll see how that works out schedule wise, but never know. You never know what we're gonna do. We're here to have fun and bring content that's hopefully entertaining. Above all, informational, right?
We just
Educational,
want you to learn. We
entertaining.
just want you to learn something.
Exactly. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Join us over on Patreon to help us grow and join a community that loves professional wrestling. Share it with a friend who loves wrestling as much as you do. And remember, the stories don't stop here. And until next time, keep chasing that cheap pop, my friends.
Tell a phone, tell a friend, tell a wrestler. See ya. That was fun.